So to all of you gays for Trump, all of you rainbow flag MAGA Bible thumpers, congratulations. You've helped empower a court that's debating whether telling queer kids they're broken is free speech.
Today's a day that ends in Y, so left-wing political influencers are crashing out and spreading misinformation on the internet. We're going to break this down, plus so much more, on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and social media, all from an independent perspective. Up first, we've got a sensitive topic, a controversial case that was just recently heard before the Supreme Court involving state laws that ban so-called conversion therapy, which refers to therapeutic treatments, and we'll get into the details on what that consists of, regarding efforts to change someone's sexual orientation, or crucially, also their gender identity. Now, as always, influencers and YouTubers and all the kind of internet commentators, they're treating this with nuance and care and informing people about what's really happening, illustrating to them the good faith arguments on both sides. Yeah, just kidding. Me when I lie. None of that's happening at all. They're spreading insane misinformation and acting like the sky is falling. I'm going to break down their response, then give you my complicated thoughts on this complex case. And yeah, let's get into it without much further ado. So the first thing I want to go over is a tweet that went super viral from the political YouTuber and influencer Brian Tyler Cohen, who's a self-described progressive with millions of subscribers on YouTube and millions of followers across social media platforms. Well, in a tweet from his account called No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, a tweet that has received 18 million views, it's a lot of views, he wrote, "The Supreme Court appears ready to side with Trump in bringing back gay conversion therapy. This practice involves physically abusing teenagers to try to turn them heterosexual, including with electric shocks and chemically induced nausea." Then it has Trump next to a rainbow flag. So this has 18 million views. It has lots of people up in arms and really upset about this. And I think, to some extent, understandably so. It's a really harmful thing to say, oh, they're going to start shocking the gay out of people again. And Trump's all behind it, and the Supreme Court's about to do this. The unfortunate aspect, or actually I would say the fortunate aspect for reality, but unfortunate for Brian Tyler Cohen and the people that listen to him, is that that's not true. That's not reality. And of course, it's ironic that this comes from his account called No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, and he just posted a lie that got 18 million views. Or I guess maybe calling it a lie is slightly harsh. It's possible that he is mistaken and he thinks this is true, but it's not actually true. So the case before the Supreme Court is actually about talk therapy for gender identity and sexual orientation. So that is the first important thing to point out to you here. Talk therapy. Not electroshock therapy, not the kind of revulsion therapy where they induce nausea or any of that kind of thing. Those extreme, really, I think, terrible practices that were used for a long time, they're not at stake in this case. States can do, and I think should, prohibit those as illegitimate forms of medical treatment. The question is, can the state literally control what speech therapists are allowed to say to their clients? Or does that violate their First Amendment rights, both in freedom of speech and in freedom of religion? And I think that's a very complicated question. And it is totally, of course, not done a disservice. It is not done fair service by these kinds of tweets, which are conflating it with totally unrelated things. And the actual case, Childs v. Salazar, is interesting and complicated. But one more thing I want to show you guys about it before we get into more of the details and my thoughts is a video from the influencer Spencewuah, my fave gay TikTok influencer who has a massive following and people apparently turn to for political insight now. He was kind of funny when he just used to do funny rants and stuff, but now he thinks that he's like, I don't know, a political commentator of sorts. And he went on this rant about this case. Let's take a listen to this.
For all of you gays for Trump, congratulations! Honestly, congrats. Your melting orange creamsicle messiah and his hand-picked Supreme Court justices just signaled that they might strike down Colorado's ban on conversion therapy for minors. They haven't ruled for it yet, but during arguments this week alone, a majority of the conservative justices made it very clear that they're leaning towards the side of the counselor who says that this ban goes against her First Amendment rights. And no, we're not talking about shock therapy. This isn't the fucking 1950s. This case is about talk therapy.
Okay, I want to just pause there and give Spencer a little bit of credit. As much as I give him crap and as much as I am going to disagree with him, he at least got the facts right here. And unlike so many people, unlike No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, he didn't just say this was about electroshock therapy or whatever, even when it's not, and get people all worked up based on something that's not true. So I will shout out to you for that one, King. The rest of what you're saying kind of sounds delulu, and we'll get into it, but shout out to you.
Therapy. But it's still built off of the idea that being queer or being trans is something to be and can be fixed. Every major medical and psychological association says that this is not only ineffective, but harmful. But the court's conservative majority, the same ones who banned abortions and upheld bans on gender-affirming care, seem more worried about a therapist's right to speak freely than protecting the LGBTQ plus youth from emotional abuse. Justice Alito even suggested that medical consensus might be politicized.
I love how Spencer acts like that's some insane thing. How could you ever suggest that the experts might be politicized, that medical consensus might be subject to, like, babe, where were you all of COVID? The entire pandemic. The problem is we live and exist in different realities. And someone like Spencer and I, we don't even exist in a shared plane of factual reality enough to truly dialogue with each other. It's very concerning. And of course, the other thing is specifically on gender identity related, trans related issues. Yeah, absolutely. Medical associations have been compromised by ideology and activists. And in particular, we know this because they've repeatedly made very false, blatantly false statements about child transitioning. They've said it's safe and effective. All the research, all the studies say it's fine. We know that's not true from the actual systemic reviews, like the Cass review, that have looked at the evidence and actually weighted it for its quality. But all these expert associations, because again, they were captured by ideology, made a bunch of unfounded or vastly overstated claims about the safety and efficacy of child gender transitions, medical transitions. And yeah, so we know that we can't just blindly listen to whatever they say about this. And the conservative justices are not crazy for wondering if the science might be politicized. Like, there's so much he's unaware of here that it's hard to even try to explain to him in a short version. But yes, scientific institutions, particularly when it comes to gender identity and trans stuff, are ideologically compromised.
Which means he is openly doubting the decades of medical research that shows conversion therapy is harmful. And he's saying,
well, we'll talk about that a little more perhaps, but there's a lot of research showing that conversion therapy is harmful, but most of that research concerns sexual orientation, not gender identity. And then most of that research is not about talk therapy, but is about like the kind of things we were talking about. Revulsion therapy, like with inducing nausea, and other exposure therapy, and even the electroshock stuff. So a lot of it is not directly applicable to talk therapy. And then there's the confounding issue of sexuality versus gender identity. There is not all that much research into the safety or efficacy of talk therapy with gender confused youth. So you're kind of conflating a whole bunch of things. And yeah, the justices aren't crazy for asking questions about that or doubting that. And also, the research doesn't settle the question if the question is fundamentally a legal or constitutional question. But anyway, I'll let him just keep yapping.
Is harmful. And he's saying that states shouldn't be allowed to rely on these medical findings to make laws. So no, they didn't ban gay marriage. They didn't ban being gay. But this is another clear step that puts so-called religious freedom over the safety of queer individuals, especially queer youth. So to all of you gays for Trump, all of you rainbow flag MAGA Bible thumpers, Congratulations. You've helped empower a court that's debating whether telling queer kids they're broken is free speech.
So there's a lot to unpack about that little rant. I mean, I didn't vote for Trump, gays for Trump. He's making this about Trump more than it actually is. This same case would be unfolding if Kamala Harris had won the election. The conservative Supreme Court majority would still be hearing it. Challenges would have still been brought to these blue state laws. The only thing that might have been different is that the Department of Justice under Trump weighed in support of the faith-based therapist, and under Kamala, they might have weighed in again, or they almost certainly would have weighed in against her. So that would be different, but I'm not sure that actually would have changed much. So making it about gays for Trump is kind of an abstraction and oversimplification. Although in fairness, it's more about gays for Trump the first term, because the justices he appointed in his first term will be deciding votes on this case. Now, I want to play you, so you've kind of heard the critics' take. I want to play you a video from the Alliance Defending Freedom where they explain, which is the lawyers, and yeah, they're called a hate group. I mean, that's debatable, but they are the lawyers representing this client, and they say it's just about their Christian beliefs and the therapist's ability to speak honestly and help people, young people who are confused, particularly about their gender. Well, take a look at this video, and then I'm going to get into some of my thoughts, which are a little complicated.
Colorado has a law that they enacted that censors counselor speech, specifically on issues of sex and gender identity.
When a teen comes to me and they state that they're struggling with their sex or sexuality, the state has dictated to me that I'm only allowed to help them go through the process of change in one way. And that way would be by rejecting their biological sex. And most likely, as in research, we're seeing that leads to a path of medicalization. If there were a minor who were to come to me and to say, I actually don't want to go down that path, I would like to grow in greater alignment with my body and become comfortable, then that's something I actually cannot engage those clients in conversations about.
By censoring these counselors, they're taking away from these kids the opportunity to have clear, open counseling conversations where they can explore their own goals, which include realigning with their biological sex or dealing with their confusion over their identity. That's something that's good that kids need. Everyone should have free speech in this country, and this is a case that's going to bring that forward to the court one more time.
So before I give you more of my thoughts on this case, I just want to present you guys with the actual definition of conversion therapy that Colorado put into this law, because it is very broad. It encompasses a lot, and that's very important for what the outcome of this case is going to be and what the right outcome is. Because I'll say this first, I absolutely think that efforts to change someone's sexuality through things like electroshock or inducing nausea or any of these kinds of treatments, these pseudoscientific fraudulent treatments, can and should be banned for minors. That I totally support, have supported in the past, and I would say they should almost certainly also be banned for changing gender identity. You shouldn't be shocking people out of being confused that they're non-binary or whatever. That's not a legitimate treatment either. The problem is that this law is breathtakingly broad. It goes much further than that. Let's take a look at the definition. Conversion therapy means any practice or treatment by a licensee, registrant, or certificate holder that attempts or purports to change an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, including efforts to change behaviors or gender expressions, or to eliminate or reduce sexual or romantic attractions or feelings towards individuals of the same sex. Now, this is the important. Conversion therapy does not include practices or treatments that provide acceptance, support, and understanding for the facilitation of an individual's coping, social support, and identity exploration and development, including sexual orientation neutral interventions to prevent or address unlawful conduct or unsafe sexual practices, as long as the counseling does not seek to change sexual orientation or gender identity. And of course, that none of this counts to assisting a person undergoing gender transition. So the reason this is potentially a violation of the First Amendment is that the state here is engaging in pretty clear viewpoint discrimination. What they are saying is that if you are allowed to counsel somebody about changing their gender if you support them changing their gender, but you are not allowed to if you want to help them reconnect with their biological sex or become more comfortable with their biological sex. So you are allowed to talk about this stuff if you affirm their identity, but not if you don't affirm their identity or even just question it to make sure you're really sure about this. You really understand this. No, you can only affirm their gender identity. I think that's kind of insane, actually. I think that if, for example, a student comes in or a young person comes into a therapist's office and says, I'm Etherian, I identify as an animal, that's my gender identity, and my pronouns are meow, meow self. Now, of course, I'm being intentionally hyperbolic, although that's a thing. It's not a super common thing, but it is a thing. But I'm doing that to test this to its limits. What this law says is that it's illegal for the counselor to tell them you're not a cat. You need to remember, reconnect with the fact that you're a human. Your gender identity of cat self is not valid. But it's legal for them to say, yes, King, you're a cat. Let's help you convince your family to acknowledge your pronouns. That's deranged. And yes, it looks a lot like viewpoint discrimination from the state against these counselors. And again, I think there's a big distinction between their speech and a treatment. Obviously, the state can regulate medical treatments, but just speech and what you can say to your client, I have a harder time with the idea that they should be able to regulate that so extensively and that doesn't violate the First Amendment. Here's the thing that these progressives need to understand. The First Amendment principle here is actually interesting because it could easily go both ways. If the state can pass laws that say a counselor cannot even counsel talk therapy that doesn't affirm gender and gender identity. And the crazy thing about that is gender identity, unlike sexuality, is not static. Some people do change, do feel differently. Some people do desist. They feel uncomfortable with their sex, and they go through puberty and they grow out of it and they feel fine with their sex. Many of them become gay or lesbian. And so the idea that counselors couldn't try to help them do that, and then if it really persists, maybe they get treatment down the line for being trans or whatever, is already crazy. But what's on a First Amendment basis, what's important about this is that if the state could do this, they could do it in the opposite direction. So I would ask Spencewuah, I would ask Brian Tyler Cohen, I would ask the other people, if a red state passed a law saying therapists cannot affirm, even in talk therapy, a trans identity, would you agree that violates the First Amendment rights of those therapists? And I think they would say absolutely yes, it does. But hang on. They either have First Amendment rights in the treatment room or they don't. So you can either have both or have neither in terms of the state regulating these perspectives. I think it's probably better to have both. And then to have people, they can, if they're mistreated, they can seek accountability through malpractice lawsuits. And none of this is to say that I would ever recommend or put my child in talk therapy for any of these things. I probably wouldn't. I'm very skeptical. I do think these treatments should be regulated or restricted when they cross the line into actual treatments that are not substantiated, not proven, but just talk therapy. Making that illegal for some, but legal for some based on their perspective. That does seem like a First Amendment violation to me. And it doesn't seem like a Pandora's box that even progressives should want to open. Because I think if the Supreme Court were to uphold these laws, you would see a suite of red states roll out laws doing what I just said, saying therapists are not allowed to affirm a non-biological identity. Is that what we want? Do we just want the government controlling what therapists can say in their treatment rooms constantly? I think we're probably better off without that, personally. But it's a messy thing. I mean, again, because we're conflating things that are so beyond the pale, like shocking the gay out of kids or teenagers and questioning whether this 11-year-old is really non-binary or they just watched too many TikToks, which definitely they're not actually. So yeah, that's my take on it. I think it's really complicated, but unfortunately, this case is just not getting the nuance that it deserves. Shocker, right? The internet conversation over this highly sensitive issue is incredibly misleading and hyperbolic. This is my shocked face. You guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe, to the like button, yada, yada, yada. Next, we're going to check in, and I'm going to keep this one brief because it's so cringe, but we're going to check in with the Hassan Piker drama again. And particularly this streamer that we talked about, Valkyrae, this girl streamer who's friends with Hassan and has been defending him because of the collar gate and the allegations that he abused his dog with an electric shock collar to keep the dog on stream as like a prop. Like I've said, he denies it. I can't prove it, but I do believe on the weight of the evidence that's most likely that he did shock the dog. Anyway, we talked about this yesterday. These ridiculous streaming personalities defending this by like bringing up Palestine as if that's just a get out of jail card for whatever you do. Well, something worse is happening elsewhere in the world. So blah, blah, blah. It's just a deflection. It's a distraction. And she's getting roasted for it. Rightfully so. I called her out for it. I don't send hate. I don't want people threatened. I don't want people harassed. But yes, I said that's a BS and you shouldn't try to pull that on us. Well, she apparently didn't handle very well being involved in this controversy, this Valkyrae streamer person. And she was very upset about all the mean things being said about her on the internet, on the Reddit. Reminds me of that, I think it's from the Pirates of the Caribbean, that meme where he's like about to be pushed off the plank or whatever, and he's looking over and he's like, first time? That's how I feel towards her. Anyway, she ended up, I don't know if she reached out to him or he reached out to her, but she ended up speaking to Asmongold, who, if you don't know who Asmongold is, he's huge in the streaming world now. He's blown up recently. Massive audience, tons of fans, tons of followers, but he's more right-leaning. He's had a couple takes where I'm like, whoa, I don't agree with that. And I don't know his exact politics. I think he's moderate on some things. But anyway, he's like not progressive. He's not one of these lefty streamers. And he's considered problematic for various things he said about, I don't know, trans people or whatever. Anyway, this Valkyrae streamer had a conversation via DM with Asmongold about handling all the backlash and the pressure and everything. And he was really nice and supportive to her. And then she apologized to her fans for having spoken to him. I'm not kidding. Let's take a look at that apology. I'm not going to roll the whole thing. I'll just roll part of it because the whole thing is just so long and rambly and dumb. I don't want to waste your time, but we'll listen to a little bit.
At the end of the day, it is my fault for not being aware enough, and I apologize to my community. It was probably so hurtful and so jarring. I'm under a rock, and that's my fault. So I think everyone, including myself, should be more aware of, what's going on in the world and what people are saying. I just like, it is my fault at the end of the day. That is my fault. It's literally no one's fault but my own. I'm not aware enough, and that's on me. Ray, you're a good role model still at this point. I don't think so. I don't think I am. I think I have a good job of recognizing when I do mess up and accepting that and being okay with it. But and it's all good. It's all like I hear you guys. I see you guys. You're right. You're so right.
It's kind of pathetic. It's kind of tough to watch. It's so pathetic. It's so grovelly. And it's also dishonest. She's just lying. If she says that she didn't know Asmongold was controversial, it should not matter. First of all, it's not a crime to chat with someone via DM. Oh no, you chatted with a person who once said a couple things I don't like. That's so terrible. You're such a traitor. Y'all are just so emotionally unstable and unwell. I don't know, man. Imagine having an audience like that. That's the thing. So she's lying because she's saying, oh, I didn't know he was so controversial because she thinks otherwise her audience will abandon her. There's no way you can be this online and not be aware, as these streamers are, and not be aware of another streamer having been involved in some of these controversies that he's been involved in. So I believe she is just not being honest, and she's trying to claim ignorance as a defense, when the truth is she knew and she just didn't think people would get mad. And then as soon as some crazies in her chat started yelling at her, she all started bowing down and said, I'm so sorry. Please. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Yes, please. Oh, please forgive me. Yeah, no. I'm sorry. If you have an audience that you are so terrified of like this, why do you want that audience? I imagine that sounds genuinely terrible to me, to be constantly like watching your step, groveling, trying not to even. She didn't even say anything bad. She just spoke to someone privately they think has said something bad. The levels of outrage Olympics mental gymnastics required to be mad about that. And then the levels of spinelessness required to apologize for it. Poor guy, Asmongold. He was just trying to be nice, and this is what he gets. Really. Very sad. Very gross. A couple people commented on this that online that I thought was interesting. The streamer Tectone wrote, Asmongold sticks his neck out for Valkyrae to make sure she's okay and helps her navigate the discourse she's going through, and she stabs him in the back and affirms to her community that he is this evil, unforgivable human being that shouldn't even be talked to. Weak, pathetic, spineless. Yeah, where's the lie in this tweet? I don't see a lie. I just see truth. It sucks because it sounds like, at least in this situation, Asmongold was doing the right thing and being nice to someone and being supportive, and this is what he gets. This is his reward, right? What's that saying? Let no good deed go unpunished. It's unfortunate. I hope that he would continue to be nice to people, though. Even if it doesn't work out for you every time, it's still the right thing to do. And the YouTuber Shoe on Head wrote on X, she needs to set herself free from the mind prison that is progressive audience capture. Quote, it was hurtful. If those fans are hurt by you speaking to someone they don't like, they're inevitably going to leave for another dumb reason, so tell them to F off and the cool ones will stay. Yeah, this is such a good point. When she said in her little clip where she's like, I'm sure it was so hurtful. Are you sure of that? Because I'm not. What part of speaking, DMing someone hurt someone else? Like, this is just so bizarre to me. And if a person is actually that fragile emotionally, that a streamer communicating privately with another streamer is harmful to them in some way, that person belongs in a padded room. Like, we can't just have those people roaming society. What if someone sneezes near them and they collapse? Like, it's so insane. And I had somebody who's a mutual of mine, when I was tweeting about this, reply to me and be like, people keep telling me cancel culture is over. And then I see stuff like this. And I'm like, yeah, well, because these online spaces haven't caught up. They don't know what the year is. They're all still captive to this deranged ideology. And honestly, when I see stuff like this, it just makes me grateful that I'm not. Because to be beholden to an audience like this, I think is a far worse fate than not having any audience at all. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, like, yada, yada, yada. One final story I want to talk about is a restaurant, Great White, has been accused of pretty serious racism and racial discrimination. Definitely illegal, by the way. And I saw videos going viral about it, and I wasn't initially going to talk about it, and I'll touch on why. But then I saw this MAGA influencer, Emily Saves America, defending what I think is kind of indefensible. So I do want to talk about it. Anyway, here is a local news clip from NBC LA about these allegations against Great White. Take a look.
They put all Asians in one corner.
Cassidy Cho and her boyfriend dined at Great White Melrose on Saturday, September 27th, when she says she noticed the restaurant was seating all of the patrons who appeared to be Asian in one section of the restaurant.
And everybody in the comments were like, no, like that happened to us. And I think there were so many people coming to light and saying, that's a shared experience that we've had.
Numerous reviews online for Great White Melrose and their other locations also had comments going back years alleging that people of color were discriminated against. NBC4 tracked down former employees who say this was part of the management culture.
They were very direct about telling me to make sure I limit the amount of ethnic people that are coming in.
Montana Pine also says she worked at Gran Blanco as a server when Sarah was a host there.
We were instructed to tell people that the restaurant was at capacity when, certain demographics came in that they did not want in the restaurant.
Yeah, so this is kind of insane. I mean, and definitely illegal. These are just allegations, but it's not just random people saying something on the internet. Reporters found former employees on the record with their faces and names attached saying, yeah, the company literally told us to racially discriminate against people. That's bad and insane. How did they think they were going to get away with that? I don't understand. Especially when some of the employees they were telling to do it are minorities themselves. You really think they're going to just let that one slide? Anyway, Very strange, very wild to me. But I wasn't originally going to talk about this, even though it's going viral on TikTok, because I just thought it's not controversial, or there's no, what is there to say about it? Like, everyone will agree that that's bad, and restaurants shouldn't treat people differently, shouldn't treat customers differently because of their race. Shouldn't be telling people it's closed when it's not. We're at capacity when we're not, because they don't want that crowd. Like, that's obvious, definitely illegal, and obviously just immoral. We shouldn't be treating each other differently on the basis of immutable characteristics like that. But then I saw this video from Emily Saves America, who is a kind of MAGA Republican girl boss influencer of sorts, defending this. And this wasn't like an out of context clip. This is a video she edited, cut, and uploaded to her own channels, saying that she likes this and it's fine. Like, I'm not even caricaturing her. Listen to this.
Literally, countless people of color says that they would never eat at a place called Great White. It's starting to become really obvious that it was never about sharks all along, and they just didn't want people of color to feel comfortable eating there.
This is why LA's failing, okay? Great White is delicious, it's consistent, and now that I know they're white supremacists, I will support them even more than I already do.
Excuse me? Did she just say that now that I know they're white supremacists, I'll support them even more than I already do? What? Girl, no. That's bad. White supremacy, not good. Like, what is going on here? So the way she's talking about it, like, all that should matter is their food, get over it, this is why LA sucks. It sounds like she's talking about a different controversy than the one we're all talking about. It sounds like people are mad that, like, oh, like there was this thing with Trader Joe's where they got mad that they had different ethnic like names about the different food brands that they had in store. And it sounds like you're laughing at some absurd controversy, not people calling them out for like literal segregationist discrimination. What? No, that's valid. And that is not why LA is failing, because people are bothered if a company allegedly racially discriminates against customers. No, there are many reasons LA is failing. That's not one of them. And maybe she doesn't know the full scope of what's going on, but I mean, that's kind of on you before you do a whole episode of your YouTube channel or podcast about it or what have you. And regardless, like, that sentence to come out of your mouth is quite a sentence. What you say exactly, I don't want to misquote.
Great White is delicious, it's consistent, and now that I know they're white supremacists, I will support them even more than I already do.
Now that I know they're white supremacists, I'll support them even more than I do. Kudos for honesty, I guess, but that's an evil thing to unironically say.
And here's the thing, they make great food. The service, whatever, I don't know, never been that great. I'm white, they didn't treat me better. But they make good food. The only thing that should qualify for a restaurant being open and remaining open is great food.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that, actually. I mean, I think, again, if we were talking about some silly controversy, then yeah, it's like, okay, they make great food and they serve their customers well. But the point is they're not serving all customers well. And they're likely breaking laws if these allegations are true. And having great food doesn't excuse, like, I don't think she'd feel this way if a restaurant banned MAGA supporters, right? Which would be significantly more defensible. I wouldn't support it anyway, but it'd be more defensible than discriminating against someone for their race because, MAGA is a belief system people choose to uphold. I don't think you should ban people from your restaurants, but like treating them differently because of something they believe or stand for is different than treating them because of the color of their skin differently. But like, yeah, no one would say, well, do they make good food? That's all that matters. No, actually, racial discrimination also matters. If you're making good food but not serving the whole community or are treating customers unfairly, that is bad. This isn't just like, oh, their personal politics or some unrelated controversy. All that really matters is they do their job well. The point is they're not doing their job well or fairly to all people, and that is bad. Am I going crazy? I feel like I'm going crazy watching this video.
They're like, Great White, the pieces are fitting together. They're talking about white people being great. So I go to these restaurants, all the locations, all the time. It is a very hipster. It is very diverse. First of all, the only thing they would do would be actually racist is if they straight up just denied you service.
I mean, that's part of the allegations, that they turned people away. or said they were full when they weren't. So is she just contradicting herself? Yes. The narrator. Yes. But also, I mean, I don't know. I think it's, even if they didn't fully deny you service, if they put all the Asians in one corner, that's weird behavior. I don't know why you would do that. Especially if it's like a less desirable corner. That's also still bad, even if they didn't fully deny service. I don't understand this point. And it directly, earlier she was saying, I like that they did it. Now she's saying, and they didn't even do anything. They didn't even do racial discrimination. What? I can't keep up.
I'm not like, extremely knowledgeable about food that Black people tend to eat, but it's usually not healthy Australian style breakfast. So I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe that's why you don't see tons of Black people there. If you went to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, I don't think you would see just 4 feet tall Chinese women anywhere.
I mean, that last point's just kind of non-responsive to the actual issue here. Yeah, the issue is that people are saying, or ex-employees and customers are saying they were racially discriminated against, saying, well, maybe just a lot of Black people don't want to eat at this restaurant. Yeah, no, at least I wouldn't care if it just, they welcome all customers, but most of their clientele end up being white because of people's preferences. I would have no issue. Maybe some woke people would be complaining about that, but that would be totally different than what we're talking about here. So I feel like the best possible benefit of the doubt to give Emily is that maybe she just doesn't know the full story of what's going on and just kind of popped off from a place of ignorance. But then if she actually knew all this and was just like, yeah, I love that. The more white supremacists they are, the better. If that statement was intended unironically, then that's kind of evil and bad, actually. And you should repent. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think of Emily Saves America's take here. I personally think it is bad if restaurants racially discriminate against customers allegedly. And I think people being upset about that is actually fair if it did indeed occur. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Hit the like button, yada, yada, yeah. Remember, you can send in voicemails for our Voicemail Friday episodes, where I react to your woke horror stories, give you advice on your personal life scenarios, and answer any questions you guys have for me. The link to send in one of those is in the description. And with that, guys, that'll be it for today's episode, and we'll talk again real soon.